Being the kid sister to the eventual queen was not without its challenges. When my sister and I were growing up, she was made out to be the goody-goody one. The Queen, a 1996 biography of Queen Elizabeth II, quotes Princess Margaret as saying, via PBS Frontline. That was boring, so the press tried to make out I was wicked as hell. Although Margaret obviously did not agree with that assessment of her character, it's true that she and her sister were opposites. The Queen, even when they were girls, always kept an eye on her sister because Margaret could be wayward. She could be cheeky. She could be naughty. Christopher Warwick, author of the authorized biography Princess Margaret, A Life of Contrasts, revealed to The Cut. In terms of personalities, Elizabeth and Margaret were as different as chalk and cheese. Princess Margaret was beloved by her father, King George VI. He used to look at her as if he couldn't believe this enchanting thing was his daughter, a courtier told The Telegraph. The daughter of one of the late king's courtiers added, the king spoiled her dreadfully. She was his pet. She was always allowed to stay up to dinner at the age of 13 and to grow up too quickly. But her father was one of the only ones smitten by her. The courtiers didn't like her much, they found her amusing, but she used to keep her parents and everyone waiting for dinner because she wanted to listen to the end of a program on the wireless, the courtier's daughter revealed. I remember my father despairing of her. Even Margaret and Princess Elizabeth II's governess, Marion Crawford, thought the young princess crowded out her older sister. We really are trying to separate them a bit because Princess Margaret does draw all the attention and Elizabeth lets her do that, she's quoted as saying. Crawford even requested Margaret be excluded from parties so Elizabeth could attend without her. King George VI was known to refer to his two daughters, Princess Elizabeth II and Princess Margaret, as pride and joy respectively via Express. And, just as King George VI loved his girls, they too loved him. Margaret was especially close to the king. Christopher Warwick, the author of the princess's authorized biography, Princess Margaret, A Life of Contrasts, told The Cut the love of her life was one man, and he was the man who died before she was 22, and that man was her father, the king, whom she adored. On Feb. 6, 1952, King George died suddenly at the age of 56. According to his biography, his death was later determined to be caused by a coronary thrombosis. Some time before, the king had been diagnosed with lung cancer and had one of his lungs removed. King George is thought to have passed away in his sleep in the early morning hours. The night before, he spent time playing with his grandchildren, Charles and Anne, and dining with his beloved daughter Margaret. Princess Margaret began a secret relationship with group captain Peter Townsend in the early 50s. Townsend was married, but later divorced his wife and proposed to the princess. Margaret said yes, but they continued to keep their romance quiet. At the time, history explained, divorce was considered a major scandal, and it was unthinkable for a royal to marry both a commoner and a divorced man. If Margaret were to marry a divorcee, it could appear as if Queen Elizabeth condoned divorce, something that was very much disapproved of by the Church of England. But, with their plan to marry, the couple couldn't keep it a secret forever. Due to the Royal Marriages Act of 1772, Margaret would need to seek the Queen's permission to marry. If Queen Elizabeth II denied her request, Margaret could then petition Parliament after 1 year's time, but, as history highlighted, that would have caused a scandal even more dramatic than her affair with a divorced man. In the end, Margaret and Townsend broke up. The princess issued a statement saying she resolved to put the Church's teachings about marriage and her duty to the Commonwealth above all else. In letters discovered decades later, Princess Margaret revealed to then Prime Minister Anthony Eden in 1955 that she planned to meet with Peter Townsend in order to properly decide whether she could or could not marry him. The Queen of course knows I am writing to you about this, but of course no one else does, and as everything is so uncertain I know you will regard it certainly as a confidence, she revealed in one letter cited by the Telegraph. Although Margaret may have seemed like she was pushed into breaking off her engagement with Townsend, these letters prove that Margaret made the final decision. The princess's authorized biographer, Christopher Warwick, confirmed to The Cut that Peter Townsend was not the great love of her life. Still, ending the relationship couldn't have been easy, especially after the entire world knew of her and Townsend's affair. A year after issuing a statement about ending her relationship with Townsend, Margaret accepted a marriage proposal from her friend Billy Wallace. According to the Telegraph, Margaret reasoned to her pals that it was better to marry somebody one at least liked than remain unmarried. Despite Princess Margaret's decision to settle for Billy Wallace, the two did not marry. According to the Telegraph, the couple never made a formal engagement announcement because their relationship ended soon after they'd gotten engaged. Wallace apparently admitted to Margaret that he'd had a brief affair while vacationing in the Bahamas. "I had my chance and blew it with my big mouth, or she would have become Mrs. Wallace and I would have been able to handle her," he is quoted as saying. Two years later, Margaret met photographer Anthony Armstrong-Jones at a dinner party. Later, Armstrong-Jones was hired to photograph Margaret, and their romance began. Nobody knew about their relationship, there wasn't a whisper about it, and De Courcy, author of Snowden, the biography, told Town and Country. It was as if they were hiding in plain sight. Because Armstrong-Jones was not seen as a suitable match for the princess, the press didn't think much of him attending parties with Margaret. When the couple announced their engagement in 1960, royal courtiers were both shocked and displeased. They thought Margaret should have married someone of her own class, not a commoner. On May 6, 1960, Princess Margaret and Anthony Armstrong-Jones, who then became known as Lord Snowdon, married. But, unfortunately, the princess didn't get her happily ever after. The first few years were wonderful, and De Courcy, author of Snowden, a biography, confirmed to Town and Country. They had a lot in common, there was banter between them, he would help her with her speeches. The couple was perhaps too similar in some ways. They were both pretty strong-willed and accustomed to having their own way, so there were bound to be collisions, De Courcy explained. And then work started to get in the way.